Okay, so have you ever, been to a live event, a play, a concert, even just a really well-run conference, and you're like, whoa, how'd they pull that off?
It really does make you wonder what's happening behind the scenes.
Right, like there's this whole choreographed dance going on that we don't even see.
Someone has to be calling those cues, making sure everyone's in sync.
Exactly. And that's what today's deep dive is all about, stage managers. We're going behind the curtain with RoleCatcher's Career Guide, plus we snuck a peek at some of their job hunting and interview stuff.
It's like getting a backstage pass to the whole career.
Totally. And you know, it's interesting. This isn't just for theater geeks. Even if you've never set foot on a stage, the skills these stage managers have, those are crazy valuable everywhere.
It's true. The guide really stresses that this isn't just about, you know, loving theater.
Hmm.
It's bringing a vision to life, often under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and they get into that right away, how stage managers aren't just responsible for the creative vision, but making sure every single element works together. Performers prepped, stage safe, budget on point.
That's all you.
No pressure, right.
Right. I mean, the guide actually says, and I quote, the work environment can be fast-paced and high pressure, particularly in the lead up to a performance.
Which, okay, that sounds kind of intense, but honestly, isn't that most jobs these days? Just with this one, you've got a live audience on top of everything else.
It definitely adds another layer.
So, is it always high pressure? Are there ever chill moments in this job?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Mm.
And honestly, the guide kind of dances around that. You know, they mentioned work-life balance, but what does that actually look like in this field?
Yeah.
Late rehearsals, opening nights, performers who might be a little unpredictable? There's a lot to unpack there.
It's like imagine being a project manager, but instead of spreadsheets and deadlines, you're dealing with set designs, lighting cues.
And actors.
Right, and actors. So you're coordinating teams, troubleshooting on the fly.
But there's also this artistic element too, right?
Yeah.
Understanding how to make a moment land, how to
Mm.
create an experience for the audience.
Oh, for sure. You're not just delivering a product, you're creating a feeling.
Exactly. And speaking of creating, one thing that really struck me in the guide was how much technology plays a role now.
Oh, yeah, they mentioned that, beyond just fancy lighting and sound systems, right?
Right. They keep it kind of vague for now, but it definitely sounds like things are getting pretty high tech behind the scenes.
We'll have to dig into that more later. Okay, so we've talked about the pressure, the tech. What about the perks? Or, lack thereof. I mean, the guide mentions flexibility, creative opportunities, but also long hours, high stress. Is the trade-off worth it?
That's such a personal question. It's definitely not all glamour and opening night parties. The guide doesn't sugarcoat the demands, but it also doesn't fully capture those intangible rewards either. You know, the feeling of being part of something creative, the energy of a live performance.
There's got to be something magical about seeing your vision come to life on stage.
Exactly. Hey, but we've talked a lot about the feeling of the job. What about the actual skills? What does it take to be a stage manager? And we're not just talking artistic talent here.
Yeah.
Oh, not at all. This is about organization, critical thinking, active listening. The guide lists a whole bunch of stuff that's valuable in any field.
Which is so important. It means these skills are transferable.
100%. And I thought this was fascinating. The guide says 79% of stage managers need communications and media knowledge.
Now, that is interesting. What does that even mean for a stage manager? Are they running the show's Instagram, live streaming the performance? It's not super clear, but it definitely highlights how those skills are becoming essential in this field.
It really makes you realize this isn't your grandma's theater anymore, you know?
Right. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the career path itself. Now, the guide doesn't mention specific salaries, which, let's be real, is a big question for anyone considering this.
Makes sense, though.
Yeah.
It probably varies a lot depending on your experience, where you're working, the type of production.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point. Okay, so no clear-cut salary ladder here. But the guide does break down the different career stages, which can give us some clues. They talk about starting at an entry level, then moving up to a junior, and eventually a senior stage manager position. So let's start at the very beginning. You're fresh out of college. Maybe you've got a theater degree. Maybe you just love the organized chaos of it all. And you land your first gig as an assistant stage manager. What's that like?
Well, according to the guide, even at that early stage, you need a deep understanding of all the technical aspects. Like they specifically mention understanding the characteristics of the stage.
Characteristics of the stage. Okay, that's way more specific than I was picturing. I was thinking knowing when to yell curtain.
There's definitely more to it than that. Even as an assistant, You're learning the ropes, helping with rehearsals, managing props.
And probably fetching a lot of coffee.
Prob
Okay, but then you move up to junior stage manager, right? More responsibility, but also, and I thought this was interesting, the guide mentions mentoring. So you're not just managing tasks, you're managing people.
which is huge. Those leadership skills are essential at any level in any field. It shows that this career path isn't just about individual talent, it's about teamwork and collaboration,
Yeah, you're not just calling the cues, you're guiding the next generation of stage managers.
passing on the knowledge.
Well, that's pretty cool. Okay, but then you get to the peak senior stage manager. This is where things get really interesting.
This is the big leagues. The guide talks about leading teams, bringing artistic visions to life, and tackling what they call complex needs.
Complex needs. Ooh, that's intriguing. What does that even mean in the world of theater? Are we talking diva actors, last-minute script changes, the ghost light suddenly coming to life?
We'll have to dive into that a bit more after the break, but it sounds like those complex needs are where those transferable skills become absolutely crucial.
So before we went on, we were in the middle of those complex needs at the senior stage manager level. It's like experience goes beyond just knowing how to like run a show, you know?
It's the difference between knowing the rules and knowing when to break them. You're making judgment calls that they don't teach you in a classroom.
So give me an example. The lead actor loses their voice opening night, the set falls apart, the funding disappears all at once.
Well, it could be that dramatic, sure. But it might also be more about things like navigating creative differences, like
Yeah.
between a director and a playwright. Or maybe figuring out how to bring a classic production into the 21st century without losing what makes it special.
So you need to be like a master diplomat, a creative problem solver, a therapist.
And let's not forget a budget whisperer. Remember how the guide mentioned staying on budget? Well, imagine that on a massive scale. I'm betting those complex needs involve a whole lot of spreadsheets.
Okay, wow. So we're talking about some serious real-world skills here, not just the artistic stuff.
Exactly. And that's where all those transferable skills we keep mentioning come, in communication, thinking on your feet, making decisions under pressure that's valuable everywhere, not just in a theater.
It's funny because we think of theater as this very traditional thing, but what you're describing, that's the modern workplace.
It's all about being adaptable, resourceful, and staying calm in the middle of, chaos sometimes.
Organized chaos, hopefully.
Hopefully. Which, hey, that actually reminds me, we never fully unpacked that whole technology thing.
Oh, right. That 79% statistic, something about stage managers and communications and media knowledge. What was that all about?
Honestly, the guide wasn't super clear on the specifics, but you got to think, the world of entertainment is changing fast.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got live streaming, digital displays, social media, all that's becoming standard in theater now.
Which means a stage manager might be working with like videographers, lighting designers, running crazy software, social media teams.
Exactly. They could be incorporating digital stuff right into the show, making sure it works for an online audience too. Maybe even running virtual rehearsals with actors all over the world.
See, this is where it gets really interesting to me because it's not just theater anymore, you know? It's blurring the lines between art and tech and events in a way that's honestly pretty exciting.
And it could open up a ton of new career paths.
Yeah.
Think about things like those immersive experiences that are everywhere now, escape rooms, even big corporate events.
It's like all those stage manager skills, but with a serious tech upgrade. Because if you can handle the chaos of a live theater production with all its moving parts, just imagine what you could do in those newer, more experimental fields.
Right. It might not be a direct transition, but those core skills, communication, being able to adapt, resourcefulness, that translates to any field where you're trying to create something impactful.
So someone listening right now could be like, wait, maybe I could use my love of theater to like design escape rooms. And the answer is maybe. The possibilities are definitely out there.
The how is a whole other question. And that's not something they really cover in a guide about traditional theater careers,
Which conveniently is probably something RoleCatcher could help with. I mean, they have a ton of resources for navigating different careers. But we can circle back to that later.
Yeah.
Right now, what's really striking me is just how much being a stage manager is about more than just, knowing stage directions and cues.
It's a whole mindset. It's about leadership, about solving problems creatively, about staying cool under pressure. And as our world gets more complex and things move faster, those skills are only going to become more valuable.
So we've talked about the skills, the career path, the way technology's changing things. But there's one big question we haven't really addressed yet, and that's the one everyone wants to know. What's the earning potential like? The guide was kind of vague on that. Luckily, we've got you, the expert.
Oh, man. You're really going to put me on the spot with this one, huh? All right, well, let's just say it's complicated.
It feels like the guide tiptoed around the salary stuff, which I get it, it's important, but also not like a one-size-fits-all answer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Stage management salaries are all over the map, honestly. Depends on a ton of factors.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, experience level's huge, right? A brand new assistant stage manager isn't making what a seasoned senior stage manager with like Broadway credits is pulling in.
Right, makes sense.
What
else?
location, you're going to be making bank in New York City versus, say, a regional theater in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, so bigger cities, bigger productions, bigger paychecks.
Gotcha. What about, like, the type of production? Does that matter?
Oh, totally. A massive musical with a huge budget is very different from a small independent play, salary-wise. And then there's union stuff. Union theaters usually have set pay scales and benefits, which can be good for stability.
Man, it's a lot to consider. Definitely not as easy as just Googling stage manager salary and calling it a day. This is where those RoleCatcher tools could come in handy, huh? Absolutely. They've got resources where you can actually drill down by your specific situation so you can get a realistic idea of what to expect in your area, experience level, all that.
That's got to be super helpful because, let's be real, as much as we love the arts, we got to pay rent, right?
100%. Got to find that sweet spot between passion and practicality.
Speaking of practical, this is where those transferable skills we keep talking about come in handy, yeah. Like, if you're a stage manager who can also manage a budget, negotiate a contract, maybe even do some marketing, you're a valuable asset.
Oh, you're not just an asset. You're indispensable at that point.
Yeah.
You become this multi-talented powerhouse that any production would kill to have.
Love it. So you're building this incredible skill set that goes way beyond just running a show. You're learning the business side, how to problem solve creatively, how to lead a team. That's huge.
And those are skills that translate to any industry. That's the beauty of it.
So even if you never end up like literally calling the cues for a Broadway show, there's so much we can all learn from this world of stage management.
Absolutely. It's about being resourceful, thinking on your feet, finding solutions where other people just see problems.
And maybe a little bit about finding the magic in the middle of the chaos, too.
100%.
Well, folks, there you have it. Our deep dive into the world of stage management. Hopefully you learned a thing or two, maybe discovered a career path you never even considered, and hey, even if you just picked up some tips for organizing your own life, that's a win in our book.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone.